things. Some of the other teams weren't as dynamic. Like the Americans and the Canadians. Like the Canadians looked awful in the 7-0 loss, but then they played great in their win. They were winning every battle on the boards. And I was watching with my son, and we thought that the level was like 10 years ago, the national women's team. Just because people were playing at top speed. They weren't uh, they weren't struggling with the skills whatsoever. It was pretty rough, and they played the game way better than it used to happen. But I saw Finland play. They played pretty solid. In Sweden seemed to have fewer players that were high level, but they had some really good ones. And I can't remember who else I saw, but I was really impressed with the hockey.
Yeah, I'm sure the stands were full of college coaches, eh?
I would guess.
Yeah.
There weren't many fans in Madison, which was disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
But
wasn't the American game sold out though?
I don't know. I didn't watch the American game. I watched the Canadian game.
Well, I think the final was sold out.
Yeah. I watched the Czechs play 2 games, and they looked pretty good, but they weren't quite as dominant as I thought they would be at that level. So the other countries, there's no doubt about it. They've all improved. I thought Sweden played really well against the States in the preliminary games, and it was a pretty good tournament. I watched it before I watched the NHL. I thought it was really good. So it was pretty exciting to see, and I'm wondering where the program's going to go. I heard last night on the news that Hockey Canada's funding has been frozen by the government because of the controversy going on with one of the world junior teams. Apparently, there was a pretty inappropriate behavior by the players towards the females. So I'm not sure where that's at. Have you heard anything of it out east, Kim?
I just saw the news stories about it, so I try to catch up a little bit on listening to it, but yeah, I'm not any more up to date than the 2-minute snippets they share in the news. So it'll be interesting. I fly out to Calgary for the Hockey Canada skills course on Saturday. Yeah. So I guess I'm not sure if it'll be a open topic of conversation, but it'll likely be top of mind with people. I don't necessarily intend to bring it up, but it'll be interesting to see whether anything is said or talked about there.
Well, last week Sami Jo was at the goaltender seminar, and I spent time with her. I went down to the major room where they have lunch and all the trophies are, and I had a good talk with her about the program, and she was really excited about it. I'm good to see her involved. So she called. She let me bring a young female player who was at a top 100. She's 11 years old, only female in goal. That was at a competition. 100 players invited to Winsport at that same time, and from near my hometown. So I got a call to see if I'd go watch her, and I did, and brought her down to see Sami. And boy, Sami gave her the whole 9-yard tour of the female dressing room, all the trophies. She got to hold the U18 Cup, and she's a pretty good little player for that age. You don't start scouting at that age, but
own your strengths and own your space.
Getting a pretty good start at it. So Kim, this skills camp how many have you been to for Hockey Canada?
Well, this is the skills instructor course, so similar to what Sami was doing with the goalie instructor. So I applied for it last summer, and so pretty sure there's like 20 of us from all over the country.
Yeah.
So you have to apply, and you have to be like a high-level skills instructor. So Carolyn Ouellette's going to be there this week. I just got the list of people who are going to be there. Because it's the last 2 years of people who took the course, right? So it's a lot of people. There's a camp this coming week, and then I think there's one in July as well for the rest of the group. But it's specifically for people like me, like with Total Female Hockey, like who run Hockey Skills as their business. Yeah. And so it's a pretty, I won't use the word exclusive, but it's a pretty small group. So it's separate from like any skills camps that you go and work on, like national team camps. Although I'm not entirely sure which group is in Calgary this week for their camp. I might be U17, but I do think we're on the ice with the U17s quite a bit during the course. So we kind of do classroom, and then we go on the ice, and then classroom on the ice. And it seems every day we're on with some athletes. So I'm going to assume it's some Hockey Canada program.
Yeah, well, I talked to Dean Seymour. I'm sure he's going to be at it. I talked to Dean yesterday. I don't know if you saw the link where Daryl Belfry talked about Sam Steele and what he saw reviewing 3 games, and he hasn't talked about what he would do with him, but he was a 50-goal scorer in the Western League, drafted in the first round, and he hasn't really turned the corner. So I talked to Dean about Daryl's doing his session tomorrow night. That's the one you have to subscribe for, but I'm getting a link sent to me that I'm sharing with Dean, so he'll come in and do, at some point, Daryl's going to talk about and show video of Sam Steele and break it down and talk about what he might be doing, what he would do if he were to work with him closely in the future. So I always had a big question mark. You're in the new skills generation, and Tom and I were in the old skills generation. And I think the general opinion, at least my opinion, is Hockey Canada's female team is every bit as skilled as the Americans. But we have not learned how to bridge the gap between individual skill and apply it to team tactics, and i.e. completing passes, making plays, protecting the puck, supporting the puck. So I have a concern about old school, which was my repetition of skills to teach the simple skills. And I know you, Kim, you're doing some work that's ahead of the curve in that regard. So I'd be curious, Kim, about what transpires there. But when I see our U18 team and our senior team play with less hockey sense than the European teams, they have great ability, but they're not as athletic and as fit. But they can, relatively speaking, pass the puck and share the puck. They hang on to it, look around to make plays. So I'm just going to take this, Kim. Just hold it.
You guys watched the NHL game last night?
I watched it, and that's the first full NHL game I've watched in a long time. As a Toronto person, you're sort of bittersweet, when Kadri scores there, and then let get away. Can't have any clutch players in Toronto, God forbid, right? We just need the soft and squishy ones. I don't know. I didn't think it was as good of a game as some of the others. It was a bit of a mess, I thought, but power play sure looked good for Colorado.
Yeah, I'm really impressed how many scissors they're doing and how many times they're using the top of the circle, doing stuff out there, doing all sorts of things up high in the zone. And I mean, the teams are playing defense so hard that, like, Colorado had a heck of a time getting a shot through. Tampa was blocking everything.
Yeah, Tampa's kind of, again, I haven't watched a ton, but like I watched most of the game, or the last game, and then last night. You know, Tampa's a little old school, right? It's pretty north-south, like compared to Colorado's creativity. You know, like get in front of shots, and it sort of seems like they're playing like 10 years ago in the NHL. It's obviously working for Tampa,
Yeah.
but it's certainly not as high flying as what Colorado is doing. Not that Tampa couldn't do it; they obviously have the talent, but it is interesting what's old becomes new again, right? Like we're back to the basic 1-3-1. Like when did that? You know, it sort of evolves and devolves, and no one's creating anything new, of course. But
well, they're also taking faceoffs, Tampa, with the D behind the centerman. That hasn't happened for 50 years.
Yeah, no, it's.
But everybody, what I'm impressed with is everybody setting up 2-on-1s all over the place. Instead of that middle drive with just 3 guys going straight, there's 2 guys picking on, the widest guy like Tampa. The 2 games ago, they had 3 cross and drops and then scored. That was quite impressive.
Yeah, and you wish that. And then again, I don't always listen with the sound on, right? But like those are the types of things that, like Wally was saying, we don't always take the high level skills we're now giving to players and infuse it into a game concept, right? But that's a perfect example. You know, if it's the commentators or someone sort of picking out that cross and drop and the skill and reinforcing it, then players who are watching those games or coaches that are watching those games are hopefully it's gonna sink in. And I always take notes of things I would add in as a coach, even though I'm not coaching a team anymore when I'm watching. But yeah, the crossing and dropping, I don't know. I mean, that seems to be a key that needs to be unlocked with every team, even if they're 8-year-olds. Making a drop pass when you're 8 is not sure as a heck easier than making a cross ice pass, right? I mean, it's actually an interesting skill that bridges up and down the age groups pretty easily. And you can imagine if you had a U9 team that could cross and drop, I don't think the other team would ever touch the puck. So I think that's an important one for sure.
Kim, I'd like to just carry forward, welcome Sami. And
Hal's here too, I think.
And Hal. Talking about the NHL commentary, and I also watched the commentary between periods more than I watched the game. Because Sami's on, Jen Botterill and Cheryl Pounder covered the Memorial Cup game last night. Edmonton won in overtime. And I noticed that all of them are making real pertinent comments. And they're seeing those little details. And in fact, I phoned Cal Botterill in not this last night's game, but the game before, because she made a comment on Kucherov, and she's actually taking a liking to him and broken down the little things, the little details, Kim, that you're talking about. And when she did it, there was a dead silence because the rest of the crew didn't know what to say. It was their turn. So I phoned Cal and I said, that is getting deeply into the nuances of the technical game. And it was interesting. Cheryl Pounder did the same thing yesterday, picking out a little detail on the young player Weeb, who got a hat trick, first ever in the playoffs. And he back checked and took away a pass because he lifted the stick of the defender so the other player could go in and score. Just amazing detail. And that's what I'm finding, Kim. The thing you mentioned was 9-year-olds. I worked out in Cochrane with a P3 group of people being introduced to scissoring, crossing, and dropping at 9 years old. And that 10 and under team, I have video of them doing it. I think we underestimate their capacity and potential. And like you said, Kim, rink-wide passes are probably a no-no. Maybe a short head man is or a long head man, but boy, this pass in tight areas, the interchange of positions. When I saw it occurring with 9 years old, five years ago, and I don't see it happen as much at all with our national teams as often as it should be. I'm disappointed. I think the game we're way behind where the game could be. As Daryl Belfry says, 10 years behind. So,
Well, Wally, I just want to add to that. I was thinking, my daughter is going to be, she's not playing competitive this year, but maybe we'll be playing U9 competitive next year. And of course, she might get stuck with me as a coach. And I was thinking to myself, in girls hockey, like the breakouts, I mean, we all know this. It's a bit of a dog's breakfast. And I thought to myself, if you just, we used to do this when I was at Dartmouth. My first year at Dartmouth, we called it the loop breakout. And the winger would come down off the wall and loop behind the defenseman and get a drop pass and then go up the ice. So kind of like how you'd see the center normally doing it. The winger would stand on the hash marks, but instead of staying there, would actually skate behind the D and be a decoy or receive a drop pass. And it worked pretty well there. But I thought to myself, can you imagine the chaos you're creating for the other team in any kind of forechecking situation? If you just start to mobilize people in your own end, you don't post up on the wall, and especially in girls hockey, everyone's running a 3-2 forecheck, right? So it's little things like that how can we infuse them in the game in different places that maybe they're unexpected. No one's expecting that cross drop on the breakout with younger players.
Kim, I want to tell you, I'd like to interrupt because Father Bauer with the national team, we did that against the Russians. It's the only, because they pinched down to the goal lines. The Auies pinch took away our wingers. We brought our wingers down in behind our D who were wheeling. They could keep it or drop it, and the winger could come up the middle of the ice. So 40 years ago.
Yeah, in girls hockey, right? I mean, there's no controlled breakouts in the minor hockey level. Everyone over pressures, everyone over forechecks, right? The majority of teams are running a 2-1-2. And until midget and junior, you don't even see a 1-2-2, right? And so, anyways, I'll try it eventually once I get back behind the bench. But I do think it's a good application of the skill, and on the power play, right? Same idea, but especially with the absence of body checking. I mean, how's anyone going to get off the puck off you? We'll see how it works.
Kim, I'm really glad Sami came on because I got to meet her last weekend, and thanks very much, Sami, for the first class tour you gave the young girl, and her father and mother were very impressed. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to get there that day, but domestic affairs prevailed here. But I do, and I'm glad you're on because Kim is going to the skills camp this week. And Kim, I'd like you in the week ahead after that camp to do the same thing as Sami. I wanted her to talk about that experience and what Hockey Canada did, what she got out of that skills camp, how they operated it, and what were the new things that she said appeared to be up and coming. Sami, go ahead.
For sure. So Wally, maybe I can talk more about this when we get they're going to put all of our presentation materials in a Dropbox, and so I can share that with you guys as well. So we had some amazing videos and stuff that I think would be really great to discuss the nuances of goaltending. Okay. So let me just tell you that it was 30 people in a room talking about the minutia of goaltending. So you had to really be a goalie nerd to really appreciate it. But it was amazing. What I love about goalie coaches specifically is goalie coaches have to work into a team. And so often they are very open and very sharing and willing to help others. It is a segment of hockey that is, I think, way more inclusive, and also more open to growth and learning than I think any other aspect of hockey. So that was really nice to see. I think that there wasn't many egos. Some of the people ran businesses. Well, all of the people ran businesses, but you rarely heard about it. It was mostly about sharing new concepts. So during the camp, or during our education, Team Alberta, U18, U16, U14 men's hockey goalie camp was going on, and U18, U16 women's camp was going on.